Hey there, nerds! Welcome back to a new episode of Two Nerdy Dads, the first in 2016. With me, always, Jason Applegate. Say hey, Jason.
Hey, everybody. Long time no see.
You can tell he's thrilled that he's in this.
I'm excited. It's been a long time. It's been so long that it's sort of like, wow, what haven't we, we've missed so much that we want to try to cover as much as we can, but it's been pretty crazy. I know there's one thing definitely that has happened since then that I don't know if you know much about it or not. But it's pretty.
Break it up, Jason. I know Google Hangouts.
That's not loud enough.
Screen time. You don't get screen time if I keep making noise. No.
How about this? Does this do it better for you? Does this jog some memories for you, maybe?
Hey, Jason, here's the Ohio Pro team. The Ohio Pro team right there.
Yeah, I got you. We can both celebrate. I'm surprised you didn't boast a little bit more. Hold on, I got to get a drink of chocolate milk here just a second. Oh, that's nutritious. And I learned a new dance.
I really hope that's Michigan water. I do. I'm worried about you now. I hope it's Michigan water.
Nicely played. Oh, man, waiting, it's tough, man, because, I grew up in Denver, and I know I've expressed that before. So I lived through 3 Super Bowl losses. When you're a kid, and that's when you're rooting for a football team, your team's the good guys, and the other team is the bad guys. I mean, that's all there is to it. They're just bad.
Remind me, who did Denver beat? At least two of those times.
I didn't want to bring those up, man. I didn't want to open those wounds.
So at least you made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, that's true. But living through that, and then I was in college when they won the first 2, the back-to-back, when Elway finally won, and it was like just crazy. So I happened to be living back in Denver because it was shortly after, we met, and it was, we graduated in Ohio, and I moved back and went to the University of Colorado. And winning those 2 was just like amazing. And then to think that it's been 18 years since those was just, 1, made me feel super old. And 2 was just like, wow. And then the 2, obviously 2 years ago I had to put up with a lot of talk, and deservedly so, because it was a terrible showing a couple years ago. One of the worst Super Bowl losses. Remind me of '89 against the Niners. That it was really nice, especially since everybody was kind of counting us out, and to see them do what they've done. But I mean, you can relate with Ohio State, and how long it had been for them for a national championship, and now they're on the map, and every year they're a front runner for a contender. So let me
get this straight. I am supposed to feel bad for the almighty Jason. Having to wait 18 years. Mm-hmm. 18.
I know.
Okay. All right. I was just wanting to get that straight.
I know.
Let me do some math. It's like 50 years.
Yeah. Well,
when I was a kid, this is the weird thing. When I was a kid, it was like 18 years since they won the last one. But they still haven't won one. So it's like, God, you guys, seriously?
Yeah.
But I understand. That's awesome.
No, it was exciting, and my whole family. It was exciting for all of us. We got together and watched it together. My dad even took the train up from Iowa to catch the game with us, so it was pretty cool. And he had done that 2 years ago, and obviously it was a much harder trip home for him. But it was cool. It was a lot of fun, and I was glad to be able to watch it with family and enjoy that. So, but let's get on to nerdy stuff. Let's get to the real reason everyone's tuning in. And I think we have to hit probably the best Valentine's Day movie to come out in some time. Deadpool, baby, a love story. Even
I agree. And let me kick this one off for you, Jason. As you know, in fact, I think you might be one of the first and the few people that know my original email was Deadpool _94. Believe it or not, back then, and I think I want to set it up at about 92. Somebody already had Deadpool.
Yeah.
I was so mad. So it's not my graduation year. 94 is just like, I like the number 9, I like the number 4. So nice. 94. And I still have that at Hotmail. Check it out if you want. Send me something.
There you go.
And back in that days, the Dirty Harry movie, the Deadpool, had come out not long ago, so everybody just assumed I was a huge fan of Dirty Harry. Couldn't be further from the truth. I've never seen the Deadpool. I had no idea. So people didn't understand what I was going about. So when this movie came out this weekend, and I was all geared to see it, I was so excited. I still haven't seen it.
The responsibility of two small children, I think, probably factors in there in some manner.
Well, let me tell you, and I don't believe Allison watches this, thankfully.
Oh.
That is my wife.
Yeah.
I had it all set up Friday, in that she was working a soccer tournament all weekend, and I needed to take Friday off so that I could take the kids to school and pick them up. But obviously, there's a large chunk in the middle of that day.
Yeah.
I could sneak away, go see it. Awesome. Well, it turns out Allison had volunteered on that Friday to go to a field trip with James, not knowing that it was double booked with the tournament. So it comes that week, and she's like, honey, I need you to do a big favor. I need you to go to this field trip with James. So I would like to say it was a huge parenting win. It was an awful nerd fail. My plan to see Deadpool went the wayside, and it was basically like, that last time Deadpool was in the movie. That's exactly what this felt like.
Ooh, ow. That harsh, huh? Oof. Well, you know what? The good news is, though, you can still catch it. It will be in theaters yet. And I promise you, ultimately, it'll be worth going. So if you haven't seen the movie, again, you're going to want to, we're just going to drop it all. So you're going to want to skip forward, and we'll do a big wave at the camera like this when we're all set and done. And you can stop skipping ahead when you see us do that, or muting us or whatever it is. Cause I mean, who wouldn't want to see these handsome faces, even if we're not talking? But I enjoyed it. I mean, you messaged me and asked how I liked it. And I said, well, it's basically a bunch of genitalia jokes and a lot of violence. So, it's what you'd expect from Deadpool. But I don't know. It just was fun, I think, was the biggest thing. I mean, I didn't go in there with like really huge expectations. I expected Ryan Reynolds to just have a blast, and it was just it reminded me actually a lot of watching Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark. It just was like the perfect casting for it. It's not much acting really that he has to do, because you just kind of get the sense that he's kind of that character, just maybe with hyperbole, not all the time, I would imagine, is he that snarky, but it just fit him really well. I never read a ton of the Deadpool comics. I remember getting the miniseries that had come out. It was right around when Sabretooth had his own. We're talking like 96, 97 or something like that. And reading that, picking up bits and pieces here. I have to say, I do not have the first appearance of Deadpool amongst my boxes of comics. Did you end up ever getting that? Because that was right around when we started collecting.
Yeah, New Mutants 98. I did not pick it up on the original drop.
Okay.
But after he was in, because I really wasn't a New Mutants guy, I was an X-Force guy.
Right.
Some of the New Mutants I just didn't like. Cannonball was a major one. Wasn't a big fan of. Yeah. But when X-Force came out with Cable, I was a big fan, so I went back and I was able to grab it.
That's awesome, because like now you can't even get your hands on it without paying out the nose, which basically where Deadpool kind of took off was, and we've talked about this before, is in his own recognition that he's a comic book character, and his breaking of the fourth wall and talking to, the readers and realizing, his, who he is. Now, he's not the first character to do that. In fact, in a previous episode, I've talked about She-Hulk and how on a run of She-Hulk, she was, the same. She would talk to the readers and break the fourth wall and even converse with her editors and her writers and things like that too. But regardless, it's clever, it's fun, it fits Deadpool really well. And then, of course, it's just from what I've gathered, and like I said, I haven't read a ton of it, it's the fact that he's basically immortal, but is also somewhat masochistic, you know, like he just sort of almost enjoys to inflict pain upon himself and upon others as well. The uber violence, the hyperbole, all of those things kind of factor into where it's just a fun bro movie. My wife was, she did go with me. We went on Thursday night. She had a rehearsal that didn't go quite as well as she would have liked. And so we kind of wanted to go someplace and just kind of veg out. And so I talked her into going and seeing that as like an early Valentine's present for me. And she went and she enjoyed it. She wasn't laughing as much as I was, but that's sort of to be expected. I think it is definitely a movie that is focused on a male audience. Not to say that a female audience can't enjoy it, but as much as they have sort of advertised the raunchiness of it, that like this is not your typical superhero movie, it lives up to, if not surpasses, that marketing strategy, because it is about as violent and raunchy of a movie as you can get. And so I'm not sure how much while I enjoyed it, I'm not sure how much critically I liked it. There's a couple of issues that sort of bother me, and they're based upon stuff that I've read. The first was about, I read this article talking about Comic-Cons and people dressing up, the cosplay at Comic-Cons. And this author was specifically addressing the Deadpool cosplayers. And he said initially Deadpool was sort of this anti-hero, and that the cosplayers would come to these Comic-Cons and they would be a bit quirky. They would you know, bend some of the rules and just be there to just have fun and shake things up. But then you started to get, the more and more people dressed up as Deadpool, the more and more people you saw it as just a way to basically act like a complete ass and be just sort of a bully even, or be really mean and inappropriate in the character of Deadpool. And because, frankly, the costume covers your entire face and you're unrecognizable. And so it would give certain people who maybe haven't even really read very many Deadpool comics or anything license to just basically do whatever they wanted to and act like a bunch of idiots. And so I thought it was really interesting, and I wondered if, and because I haven't read a lot of the comics, did this movie take, and it with its raunchiness and so forth, take it to that sort of, you know, uber frat boy stereotype kind of level with regards to the humor and the exaggerated violence? Or did it stay pretty true to the material? And did the writing of Deadpool also go that direction? Did it start out as clever writing, and then it just got to be so hyperbolic that it lost all meaning?
That's an interesting point. And to break in, because I've never, I haven't seen the movie, but I am fascinated by the evolution of Deadpool, and that Rob Liefeld, and I can never pronounce this correctly, Fabian Nizza?
Yeah, I don't know either. You know me.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, Fabian. I really am. But they created the character in New Mutants, and he was simply a villain. That's all he was, an amazing assassin, villain, mercenary. And the original story was that he would change sides on a dime. Literally, whoever would pay him more, he would stop in the middle of the war, change sides if you were going to pay him more. That's what he was known for. And he had an amazing wit repartee with on par with Spider-Man, but it was darker, much darker. But he did not talk to the audience. There was no fourth wall he was breaking. Right. And eventually, over time, after Mark Waid did the second miniseries, and it was really Joe Kelly, who did his first ongoing series, that some of these things started coming in with Blind Al and Weasel. And I loved Joe Kelly's series because I thought he used those characters perfectly. And again, it's fuzzy. I'm going to have to go back and read them. I do have them somewhere in this house. I'm going to have to go back and read them. I don't believe he was talking. He may have been still thought bubbling things he was going to say, but I don't believe he was literally talking to himself or breaking the fourth wall. But he was still sarcastic as hell, smart ass, just he had changed a little bit to be more of an anti-hero than a villain doing good things. So we do see this change. He's not just going for the money, he's doing what he thinks is right morally, which was odd for Deadpool. And then, as you know, we had a break from comics when families start and that sort of thing. And I didn't get back into it till I want to say 2005 or so. So there's about a 10-year gap. And I read Deadpool, Merc with a Mouth. I think that's what it was. And it was basically a one-off collection of stories, trade paperback maybe. And he had begun Fourth Wall. He had no consciousness as far as he could talk to anybody, and it was really split personality on what was going on. And it was like, whoa, who is this guy? I love it, but this is different. And it was, I would love to know more about that evolution of where the current Deadpool came from, because it's not what it started as.
Right, absolutely. The other thing I think that's worth noting, just from a comic historical standpoint, was when Liefeld and Fabian created the character, he was basically a parody of the DC character Deathstroke from the Teen Titans. Is that right? That's the guy's name, right? That's the
because his real name is Slade Wilson.
Slade Wilson, as opposed to Wade.
Slade Wilson, totally. Right. It was, if I remember correctly, Liefeld drew the art, and Fabian, who was currently writing the Teen Titans at the time, said that looks exactly like Deathstroke, and that's where that came from. He's like, oh yeah, and they called him Wade instead of Slade. And if I understand correctly, there's been some multiverse comics, not necessarily DC, but in Marvel, that aren't normal timeline, that kind of make even more fun of that. Like he's literally dressed in that outfit and doing things that Deadpool would do.
Sure. And it's interesting because the character has evolved so much to where he was really this sort of cult character, you know, when you and I were reading comics in the mid 90s, and he was this kind of cool villain in the X-Force comics series. And then, you know, because I remember having like an action figure from Deadpool, and people were like, well, who's this weird Spider-Man you have on your shelf here? And I'm like, no, that's Deadpool. And now, of course, everybody knows who he is, because eventually I think it was one of those things where it's just like this sort of cult hero that just grows and grows, and the different adaptations just kind of got more and more popular. But
that's the funny that you say that is, I think you and I grew up to love him because he was obscure. He was just this cool guy, and you really wanted to see him in comics. It was cool when he popped up. When some of the younger nerds like Brandon and Cubby and Bobby, when we started doing this and I would talk about Deadpool, they're like, oh, not you. So overplayed, so overexposed. I hate Deadpool. And I'm like,
interesting.
What are you talking about? And as I got more, like, would go back into comic book stores, I'm like, holy crap, he's
everywhere.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, so I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear somebody else, maybe one of those guys, chiming in on what they thought, whether it was more representative of that or not so much, because there were aspects of it that bothered me in the storyline. The first one was the love story. As you know, it's very the storyline's very cliche, you know, and I feel like, I guess I'd have to watch it again and try to see, are they making fun of the cliches, you know, romance story? Maybe that's part of the gag, is that they have their tongue firmly planted in their cheek. But I really disliked the love interest character. One, she was the stripper prostitute with the heart of gold. And she is, you know, the damsel in distress, who does, of course, end up like doing some things, you know, to sort of show, look, I'm not quite so helpless. I was able to do this at least. But then literally Deadpool at the end has a line about, well, you know, the girl, something about the girl making you a better hero. And that's been another huge sort of protest that a lot of, you know, critics have against a lot of comic book stories, is that the female characters are only in the stories to make the male characters look better. The most recent example was the latest Avengers movie, where Black Widow pretty much got reduced to just be a character to make the Hulk a better hero in that story, instead of her having her own character with her own story. That was some of the criticism that it got. So that bothered me a little bit, but not so much that I disliked the movie. Some of the raunchy language was was sophomoric, but it, I laughed at a lot of it. A lot of it was really funny, very shocking, and very very fun. And I think it worked because it was Ryan Reynolds delivering it, and just the way that he does it. He has that sort of boyish charm, and the way his voice works and his delivery makes it amusing to where it's not obnoxious. The violence was pretty bad, but I mean, nothing any worse than like a Tarantino film by any means. But I loved the fourth wall. I loved him talking to the audience. It was, in fact, stay for the stinger if you're a child of the 80s and you've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Just stay for the stinger. But it reminded me, even before the stinger, very much of that type of fourth wall breaking, that it was so consistent through the movie, and in a manner that was, you were at ease with it, and you welcomed it, like you do in Ferris Bueller, where you feel like you're kind of in on something. And all the self-references. I mean, the stuff that they reference, they drop all these, references to other comics. Bob from, the Hydra Goon, even makes a small appearance. The reference to that terrible X-Men Wolverine Origins version of Deadpool, has its little appearance. He references Hugh Jackman at least 3 times. He references himself, or he's like, Ryan Reynolds is on the cover of magazines and stuff like that, in the actual movie. He references, like, someone says Professor Xavier, and he's like, wait, which one, Patrick Stewart, and I can't forget the other actor's name off the top of my head. But so he makes all these references to the fact that, hey, this is just a movie that you guys are watching, part of this franchise that Fox owns the rights to, and maybe they can't afford to have any more characters in this movie. And there were just all these really funny, self-referential, self-deprecating kinds of things that made the movie, for me, very, very enjoyable. And like I said, it was a lot of fun to watch. Whether it's a really good movie or not, I guess I'd have to watch it again and see, just how purposeful everything was, that I had complaints about. Maybe if I watch it again, they were actually making points about those things. But I don't know. So I hope that didn't ruin anything for you, Jimmy.
No. Like, that's the great thing about Deadpool. It doesn't matter. I want to see him do it. I know it's Ryan Reynolds. I get that. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
I want to see Deadpool. One of the greatest incarnations of Deadpool to date is his video game, Deadpool the video game. It's spot on, perfect, and it is not for everyone. That's what it keeps driving me nuts that this is R-rated, and I keep hearing people say and argue, well, the comic book's not R-rated. Why does the movie have to be R-rated? It's like, because that is the best version of Deadpool. You get all of Deadpool in an R-rated, and that's what this video game was, and it was fantastic. So, and in a video game, they broke the fourth wall to so much that you get through like the first level, and he goes to go further, and there's nothing there, and all of a sudden he breaks through, and it's like The Legend of Zelda. Mind you, this game is only like 4 years old, and he's in a graphic like Legend of Zelda. He's like, what the heck? What? Swearing up a storm. Calls his agent and finds out that he blew all the money on the budget in the first phase.
First level.
That's all they have left. He's like, yes, I'm going to go solve this game, and I'm going to get more money. And it's just like, what am I playing? This is ridiculous. So from what I've heard and what you're saying, it's just exactly like the movie, talking to the audience, doing what Deadpool needs to do. And I'm so happy that Fox took the risk. And I know they were pushed into it because of the test footage that was released, and all the fans came to the defense. And still Fox was like, okay, but you can only make it for like, I don't know, like $40 million or whatever. which sounds like a lot, but today's day and age, that's not a lot at all. I really hope Ryan Reynolds took 0 paycheck, but a percentage of the movie. So I
that
hope
would be
he's
smart.
rich now because he so deserves staying with this character as long as he did and putting up with the crap he did in Wolverine Origins. I would love just to have him this is him. This is his Iron Man. This is his Wolverine. He is now this character, and he's going to bank and cash on it. I would love to see that because I think he is Deadpool. When I saw Blade 3, that was the first time I saw him as a movie like that. When I saw Blade 3, I'm like, oh my God, he nailed it. He can do it. This is him.
Yeah.
Very happy he pulled it off. And honestly, even though I haven't seen it yet, the best news I got this weekend was it's great. As opposed to when Wolverine Origins came in, you were like, oh no, just bad news all weekend when that came out. So I'm so happy that people like this.
Yeah, and it's the other thing I wanted to say about it is best opening credits ever of any movie, and when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about because it was literally the best opening credits I've ever seen. I don't think I've laughed harder at opening credits than I have in that. It's so funny, and you're exactly right. He is Deadpool. Like it fits him so well that you can't imagine anybody. In fact, I really feel like that's why Green Lantern didn't work. When Ryan Reynolds did that was, if he's any DC hero, he's the Flash. That it fits his character more, and he's not really a Hal Jordan, and so
no, he's a Guy Gardner, not a Hal Jordan.
That's a good, yeah. I mean, if he's a Green Lantern, that's what he would be, absolutely. But he's got to be, sort of wisecracking. That's just part of his appeal, and he's so good at it that it really works nicely. So I think it was top notch. It's worth watching. I'll probably see it again. I know my wife won't go with me to see it again. I know my kids won't see it until they're 17 because it is definitely rated R. I mean, in every way you can think of it being rated R, it is rated R. And I do think that was smart of them to do that because it played to what people want Deadpool to be. And what's interesting is now they're looking at whether or not other movies should be R. For example, the last Wolverine movie, they're talking about that possibly being R. I wonder if it'll do well because Wolverine already is mainstream, and you already do have a kid following with that I feel like they probably won't because they'll want that PG-13 money making. Whereas Deadpool, as a lot more people know Deadpool now than like we were saying in 96, 97, but he certainly isn't mainstream. Not you can't just go on the street and say, hey, who's this guy? Or, can you draw me a picture of Deadpool or something? And anybody would be able to do it. But Wolverine is that way now. And I think, 10, 12, 15 years ago, you could go up to Joe Schmo on the street and be like, hey, you ever heard of Wolverine? And they'd be like, no, I don't know. It sounds familiar. But he's on par with Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. Everybody knows who he is. And I wouldn't be surprised if Deadpool starts making his way there too.
Well, I had a thought because obviously Wolverine, Old Man Logan, which is the next one, is a Fox movie with Fox mutants. Mm-hmm. As far as the agreements go now, they can't use Marvel Studios.
Right.
There are a lot of characters, specifically Hawkeye, that play a major role in Old Man Logan.
Right.
I don't remember all of them. I know Hulk is in there, and Hulk's a weird one because he's kind of still owned by Universal, but Marvel has him, so I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
But I don't remember Deadpool being in Old Man Logan. If he is, it was a minor role. It would be very interesting to see Deadpool play a role in Old Man Logan, specifically since we've seen already some good-natured bantering between Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds
pretty clever.
Outside the movie. So I would love to see them together. And if I remember correctly, and if you haven't read the book, sorry for ruining it, but isn't Red Skull the bad guy?
Yeah, he is. At one point, I mean, ultimately, it's the Hulk, in the fourth issue. But yeah,
when he got to New York, like the New York side of the country, it was Red Skull.
He's running things.
Have Red Skull, so it'd be kind of funny to have Deadpool doing something over there.
Yeah, maybe he's the Hawkeye character instead too, and accompanies old man Logan on his journey, because that was kind of what Hawkeye did in there. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how they do that. They would have to really change a lot of the characters and probably make them all X-Men style characters instead. And then I don't know but how do you get around having the Hulk family, because that was so crazy. You know, that they I guess you just go Wendy. It just doesn't work though.
Well, actually, they do have. This is awful too, but they have the Thing. They own the rights to the Thing, and I'm not saying they're interchangeable, but I am saying you've got two guys that are similar in makeup and storylines at times. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they both have super strength. You've got that, but yeah, I don't know what they would do with that. So a lot of times these things though, they're just title only. Speaking of things that we're not sure about, Batman versus Superman. Every trailer that I see, I just turn to the person next to me, because they all know I'm a huge Batman fan, and I just go, I don't think this is going to be any good. This looks terrible. Terrible.
I just read, as we were talking, as I was trying to ignore your Deadpool review.
Sorry.
No. It's my bad. I didn't see it. But there's a lot of speculation that this movie and the early chatter on it and the early reviews are already saying not good. And because of it, they're going to have to really reassess their release plans for DC. Specifically, there's nothing to do with Suicide Squad. They're just going to have to go full bore, which, to be honest, I think that looks phenomenal. We haven't talked about that trailer that came out.
Yeah, we should talk about that. Yeah.
What was the music? Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody. Oh,
yeah.
Great trailer.
So
Perfect
good.
Trailer. It really proved that somewhere Warner Brothers and DC know how to make a trailer and market. They haven't proved otherwise, but that one was great.
Yeah, it was.
But they've already filmed Wonder Woman, so that's or in the process of filming it, so that one's kind of there. So they're really, after those two, going to have to reassess how they're going to do Justice League. And again, this is a report, I believe it was on Hitflix, that how are they going to do the Justice League, because from what I'm reading, they don't believe this is a good introduction to the Justice League, and they're thinking of moving up the Batman movie by Ben Affleck, because early reports are Ben Affleck is amazing at Batman, and Jesse Eisenberg is amazing as Lex Luthor. Other than that, not a lot of positive reviews on the movie.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw the same article, and they were, I guess, with some test groups. They're not happy with the feedback that they're getting on it. What I saw was that basically the guy that was writing this particular report was saying that there won't be a Justice League movie, like that they're just going to table that and maybe not even do it. And certainly that Zack Snyder would not be directing it. And so to me, that seemed to be the biggest indication there seemed to be to me that they're putting a lot of this on Snyder's plate and saying this is his fault. That if this movie isn't any good, it's because of him. And a lot of the flack that I've been seeing from fans is that, like Batman, the Batman Begins Dark Knight series was successful because it was comic book inspired, and this one's getting a lot of criticism because they feel it's too harsh of a comic book adaptation from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, and that Snyder is doing basically what he did to The Watchmen and just like taking this piece and making it into a film. Obviously there's tweaks and stuff here and there. It's not like Watchmen were almost, sell for sell. It's the same kind of movie. But I kind of tend to side with those perspectives. I hope that I'm wrong and that this is pretty good, but I just, every time I see it, it just seems like the writing's bad. It just seems, maybe it's just that the trailers are really choppy or something, but it just doesn't look very good. It just doesn't look good at all.
No, I think that's my big problem is I keep hearing that it's based off The Dark Knight Returns, but the footage I'm seeing does not show me that. So
No.
I don't understand how that can be. And as we've said before, and I get it, I get all you trolls out there and be like, well, it doesn't have to be exactly like the storyline in the comic books, nerds. I get that. But at the same time, if you're going to tell me that's the case, and you're going to tell me that Man of Steel was the first showing of a metahuman, then what happened in between all these years that all of a sudden we get the dawn of justice? You didn't give us anything. Why do we have an old Batman? That makes no sense. So I don't believe it is necessarily just The Dark Knight Returns, but that's all we're hearing.
Yeah, I really feel like the reason you're getting that is because of Batman's two costumes. You know, the one where he's got the big bat symbol on his chest is very Frank Miller, and the one where he's in the suit is definitely the Dark Knight Returns when he's plugged into Gotham City beating the crap out of Superman. And everybody loves that. Everyone who's a Batman, fan loves that scene. It's just a really cool, you know, uh, something that you kind of hang your hat on a little bit. And so I think everybody's grasping those two things. And so now you can't win as DC, right? Because one, either people are mad at you for referencing that and then not sticking to it like they might want you to. They might want you to do it exactly. Well, why wouldn't you just make The Dark Knight Returns as a movie? Or you have people who are like, wait a second, why are you being so unoriginal and just taking these bits and pieces and like stealing from here and there and putting it all together in this hodgepodge of a film? That's where I'm sort of coming from. I feel like this film has just sort of been forced together. Like they did this Man of Steel movie, which, let's be honest, was just about making Superman badass instead of being a Boy Scout. And I liked that about Superman. I felt like he needed that for his image. Did they go maybe too far with it? Yeah, probably. They took that and then they said, all right, let's give people what they want, Batman and Superman in a movie together. But instead of calling it World's Finest, like they should have, and look at stuff that Bruce Timm did when he brought those two characters together, do something like that with Lex Luthor, as it being in the mix of things. Do something like that. No, let's go Frank Miller. Let's do that. Let's go where they fight each other, and then heck, let's throw Wonder Woman in there. And it just feels like it's been, like I said, hodgepodged, forced together. I hope that I'm wrong. I guess the one thing that I'm optimistic about is that Wonder Woman actually is pretty cool in this. I'm encouraged by the fact that you've heard reports that Affleck's good as Batman, because in the trailers he doesn't seem very good. He seems so hokey, but it might be that the writing's just that way, or maybe the trailers are just bad. But hopefully Wonder Woman's good. I hope her movie's good. I love that it's set in World War I. I think that in and of itself is promising, because it's something that's different. Not anybody else has done that. It's not just going to be Captain America, but with Wonder Woman instead. And it is, if there's no Justice League movie coming out of it, it's probably for a good reason. We'll see what happens.
I heard one theory. I will give credit. Russ Harrison, my good friend who I work with, he said, well, what if the that thing at the end that we see in one of the earlier trailers is in fact Doomsday? Okay, I don't necessarily like how we're coming to that, because again, I get it. It's not the comic book, but the way he was created by Star Labs in the comic book and buried, and nobody heard from him in a million years or whatever.
Right.
But his speculation was, well, what if that is Doomsday and he kills Superman, and that's how we have the Dawn of Justice? I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm kind of on board if he does in fact kill Superman, and we have kind of a to be continued sort of thing, and that's how we get Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Batman now fighting together to essentially the final remnants of Doomsday, because Superman did most of the heavy lifting. I was like, you know what, I could dig that storyline, but that's not what we're seeing. And if in fact the Justice League film is pushed back, that makes even less sense.
Yeah, I think that's wishful thinking. I like his creativity. I like his idea, but I'm pretty sure that's not where this one's gonna go. I think it's gonna be pretty obvious that the three of them have to pair together. And I guess the only thing that I've heard is that whatever that character is, that the Doomsday-ish, brought Zod back to life character, isn't even the fiercest foe that they face. I had seen something like that, and so sort of interested and intrigued as to, well, what's that going to be then? Are they just referring to Lex and his, power of money, or what are they going with? And with what's his face playing Lex Luthor, that's another one that I haven't really liked him in the trailers. So if he's getting good reviews and people are saying he's good, well, maybe I've got some hope.
Yeah, he's been and the most recent trailers I thought were interesting for the Super Bowl with the Turkish Airlines. I thought at least that was inventive. I like that.
Yeah.
And I actually looked it up because I'm like, Turkish Airlines, is that real? It is a real airline that they partnered with. They cover a lot of Europe, and they partnered with UEFA. So they're a big airline. So it's pretty cool, and obviously that's a smart partnership for DC and Warner Brothers to do in the European market. But these newer ones, I was a little confused because they have a very Batman-centric trailer. And I was like, oh, goodness, does this mean they're basically trying to make this a Batman movie because they're not getting good feedback on it? But then I did see a Superman-centric trailer, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're just, trying to focus on each character. But every time Jesse Eisenberg's in there, and I'm like, his voice is just, everything does not work for me. I don't want to say I need Gene Hackman to be in there, but that's what I want to see, and I'm not seeing it, and I don't know what to think.
I guess my only thought is maybe they are trying to hide so much of it, that it's making it so that the trailers are coming off as real choppy and hokey because they can't give us much more because they don't want to spoil it. That's the only thing I can think of. But if that's the case, man, they should have looked at the Star Wars trailers, dude. Like, go to that. Give us some dramatic music, show us some cool action shots, have a couple quotes here and there, and then roll with it from there. I'm really, really worried about this being terrible and then just sinking the DC ship as far as movies for quite some time. And we've seen that happen with a certain Arnold Schwarzenegger and, Uma Thurman. Before, and then it sunk comic book movies for quite some time even.
And Superman Returns did the exact same thing. That was supposed to bring back Superman, and poor Brandon Routh, I'm not sure his career ever rebounded. I think he's great on the TV.
He's in the Flash now. Yeah, he was the Atom, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, he started out last year on Green Arrow. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he was Ray Palmer, and he did a fantastic job. And now I understand he's been on Flash, and he's on the Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so but his career, to me, has never really recovered.
No.
He got knocked so bad for being Superman. It's like, it wasn't his fault. That writing was awful.
Yeah, it was. It was bad. Singer. But what are you going to do?
Destroyed 2 franchises. He's reclaimed 1.
Well, you know what? And that brings us to the other thing was the X-Men Age of Apocalypse. Apocalypse got a lot of flack for the still images of him. And I feel like, I don't know if they've made changes to him, CGI-wise, but I feel like in the trailers, he hasn't looked so bulky and hokey. So maybe it's because, still images, sometimes don't do things justice, and they make things look hokier than they are. But what are your thoughts on?
We did a little bit with Days of Future Past. Some of the early stills that they did, like I remember seeing Quicksilver and being like, "What did you just do to Quicksilver?" But in the movie, that was one of the coolest characters and coolest scenes. Sure. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So maybe we give it a little bit of leeway there. So, but I'm kind of excited for that one. I love Olivia Munn as Psylocke. What a perfect casting. Like, she wants that part and she looks that part, and nerds are going to go crazy for her in that part. Have you seen that little the short video that she does where she's swinging the sword around a bunch, and then it pans over to Ryan Reynolds and he's got a balloon sword and he just goes boop on the top of I watched that like 20 times. It just cracked up every time. It was just so funny. But looks awesome, right? And who's playing Storm? It's not Halle Berry this time, is it? It's somebody else.
I honestly don't know her name because they replaced Jean Grey. They replaced Storm.
The Mohawk Storm's always been my favorite. So when I saw that, I was geeked. geeked about that. But yeah, Jean Grey's the girl from Game of Thrones. I like that casting pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to think who else. Well, Oscar Isaac is Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Poe Dameron, which I think is awesome. I have just been enamored with Michael Fassbender as Magneto. I really never thought
Great casting.
anybody could ever replace Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Then you see Michael Fassbender, like, dude, I think you are amazing. You two in Days of Future Past, that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Love that. James McAvoy, that's who does Charles Xavier. Again, I really didn't think anybody else could play the role. Patrick Stewart was fantastic, but he's done a great job too.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see them as younger versions of the Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart characters who are much older, and they're much wiser, and they've learned a lot from their mistakes. And you've got these younger characters who are being more rash, who are being more rigid in their beliefs and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's interesting that Magneto is going to be one of the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse, from what I can tell. And then the others are Storm, Psylocke, and then, of course, Angel into Archangel, which is the classic story.
Let's not pass up. Your favorite character is in this movie.
Jubilee. I saw her hoop earrings. Oh, I thought that's it. Really? There's another one. All right, go.
No. Jubilee is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Obviously, they couldn't pay the money to get Dazzler, who is your true favorite character, but they did Jubilee.
Yeah. You know, I have always enjoyed Dazzler's costume, though, like that 70s, with a big collar and the bell bottoms. I know. You can't go wrong there. Yeah. But yeah, I saw her. I'm like, oh, there's Jubilee, that bright yellow jacket and those big old hoop earrings. I don't know if that's the only appearance that she has. But yeah, they'll do them all. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I hope it's good. I think Apocalypse is a cool villain, has always been a cool villain. Loved him in the old X-Men cartoons from the 90s even. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. It's nice to see X-Men kind of getting back on track.
And if you guys don't know Apocalypse, there's no basis for Apocalypse, go read them in the comic books. But one of my favorite all-time crossovers, Age of Apocalypse, the original. I guess they went back a couple of times, but go read Age of Apocalypse. I cannot remember what book it starts in, but it starts with Xavier's son, Legion.
Yeah.
Legion kicks off this whole series that means that Magneto has to take over the X-Men, and Age of Apocalypse begins because there's nobody there to fight him off. And awesome.
Yeah. It's a great little sort of spin-off pocket universe kind of a storyline that now has become so like overdone, but at the time it was like one of the first times to ever really do that. And it is a fun read. It's fun to see the characters in different roles and things like that. And then the other thing is, don't expect the movie to be that, because only name only, title only. So which that's all right. Let's do it that way.
And I would like to put in a plug for Bishop. He was another character I loved during the 90s. Him and Cable were like 2 of my favorite heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea when I came back into comics, Bishop was a bad guy and kind of tried to wipe out the X-Men. I was like, whoa. So all the younger nerds like Brandon and Bobby and Cubby had no clue why I liked Bishop. I'm like, I liked Bishop because of Age of Apocalypse. He fixed the problem. I had no idea that his whole purpose for coming back in time turned out to be he was trying to kill Xavier and all the X-Men.
Yeah, I'm sure that was one of those later writing developments that are like, what the heck should we do with this character? His mullet is outdated. We need to figure out how to make him cool again. We shaved his head in Age of Apocalypse. I kind of like that. Let's keep going that direction. And then you know what let's do? He travels through time. Let's have him just screw everything up. Exactly. That's what time travelers do. So yeah, no, that's kind of, it is funny how generationally, like you've mentioned the Deadpool thing earlier too, how it's different. And when you fall out of comics and you don't read them, and X-Men's an easy one. It's been my biggest criticism of X-Men is when you fall out of reading X-Men, it's so super hard to get plugged back in because the teams change so much. so much that like sometimes you come back in and you don't recognize like 70% of the characters, or the characters you do recognize are not the same characters that you recognize. And
Yeah.
it just, and the storylines are so complex, and there's such an intricate web of everything that it's just like, I just feel like I'm out of the loop. I've missed like 7 seasons of Doctor Who and I have no idea what's going on. So whereas you jump into a Batman, you jump in even to Daredevil, you jump in and you can, it's one character, you can pick up the stuff you've missed. Oh, Daredevil's revealed his identity and now nobody believes that he really is. They think it was just a stunt. Okay, I buy that. Let's roll. You know?
Yeah, I think my X-Men history is kind of well documented, and that when Onslaught ended, I was like, I'm done. This was the worst crossover ever. I literally was done with comics for a while, and I jumped back in with I think it was called Second Coming with Hope Summers.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the hell is going on? And that's where I learned about the House of M, which was a fabulous storyline. I was like, well, that explains a lot. And then that's what Bishop was going after was Hope. And I was like, wow, I'm so lost. And exactly what you said, no clue what was going on.
Nope. It's just part of the flaw of X-Men is too many characters, too much of complex continuity, really. And we've talked about how that can be the downfall of comics anyway, is this idea of having to stick to a continuity. Let's quickly hit Suicide Squad, and I think we should wrap up maybe with that, baby. Opinion of Suicide Squad, first hearing about it, every time I see something, man, I just get more and more excited about this movie. My only real super concern is the portrayal of Harley Quinn. I really am concerned that she's just going to be booty shorts and attitude. And it's a shame because she's such a fantastic character as a female character. And her origin in the animated series and then, of course, when it translated over into comic books, gave her so much agency. Yes, she was the sort of like psychologically and probably even physically abused girlfriend of the Joker, but she chose to follow him. Like, she fell in love with him, but she made these choices to become Harley Quinn, where she could have not done that. And so, but with the New 52 rebooting, which you see in the latest preview that we were talking about with Queen, where basically the Joker dumps her into the vat of acid and turns her into Harley Quinn, has gotten a lot of criticism because it takes away her agency of becoming the character that she is. That now her victimization has actually created who she is, that she's nothing more than just damaged goods, the victim of the Joker, and she's just kind of floating through. Still a lot of, she's very fun and quirky. Yeah.
That's a bummer. But at the flip side, most of Joker's victims don't survive. So that kind of shows how strong she is.
That's an interesting way to interpret.
She does survive, and she basically comes back from it.
She does. And that's a really good point too, is that in the newer version of Harley Quinn, she seems to have kicked the Joker as like her, oh, Mr. J, like she was in the anime series, which she very much was the domestic violence victim that just doesn't leave him. And so maybe that's one of the strengths. But from the previews that I've seen, I just kind of feel like she's booty shorts with an attitude, and I really hope there's more to her than that.
It seems like in the last trailer, the Bohemian Rhapsody one, there was something going on there at the end where, or maybe it was the middle, I honestly don't remember, where it was like, it almost looked like the Joker was trying to save her, like there was more of a storyline.
Well, that I think is the origin. That's where because he's pulling her out of that vat, and so a lot of people are saying, okay, that's going to be her origin story in the movie, which is exactly what happened in the New 52 reboot that a lot of people really had an issue with.
I'd be curious if that's the way it goes.
I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see. Yeah. I think it's going to be fun. If nothing else, it'll be, maybe, somewhat on par with Daredevil as far as like just a lot of fun.
I agree. And DC needs something that's fun.
They do. Big time. Cool.
Well, cool, sir. That's a lot of nerdy stuff to catch up.
I know. We've been gone for a while, but I think we have sufficiently caught ourselves up.
I think so, and hopefully we won't go as long this time. It's just
yeah.
Every time it gets us just trying to get back into the new year.
It's tough when you got a family and you got a job, and it's just been crazy.
Exactly. We'll quit our jobs and we'll just do this. Sounds good.
Why not? I only have bills to pay.
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah.
Anywho, all right, Jason. Take us out.
Buddy. Hey, everybody. Have a nerdy week, and hopefully not a nerdy month, just a nerdy week or two. We'll see you soon.